This is the watch this video for Monday, November 12th. This is Friday. This is showing you the SPY chart here. Friday was kind of an ugly day, gap down, sold off. Ended up closing about in the middle of its range, a little bit of extra volume. So certainly some weakness, but you could also argue it's had one heck of a move from when it sunk down to 260 all the way back up to over 280. So certainly was due for a pullback. As you probably know if you've watched any of my videos, I don't get too hung up on analyzing the overall market. I just try to build a list of stocks that I want to watch for the next day. I'm in cash every night, so I'm just looking for ways in this video to make money on Monday, right? So here's the list of stocks I'm starting with, and there's nothing pretty here, PYX, but and there's something that I'm really not sure of. It's a tobacco company, but also now is, I guess, I don't know the ins and outs, and again, I don't get mired down in too many details. I like to know why a stock is moving if I'm getting ready to place a trade in it, but I don't spend my time reading balance sheets, income statements, and or a whole bunch of news items and people battling on StockTwits and Twitter about whether or not a company is going to go green or red tomorrow. It's going to have a big day or a red day. I don't get stuck in that stuff. So what little knowledge I have is that they got a big move when they were entering into the pot space, and you'd have to think, and this is just my 2 cents, if they're already in the tobacco space, getting into the pot industry would probably be easier than a company starting from scratch. But what do I know? Anyway, this thing has been decimated since earnings, and the pot stocks have had a decent week last week, albeit they're rolling over again now. But this thing has just been decimated, and it's down to kind of some support back here. The most recent lows I see on the chart are from July, and yes, it made a huge move, but it's also made a huge round trip to get here. I think this is absolutely worth watching for a bounce on Monday, but again, only with a proper intraday setup. There's a strong chance I won't trade it at all, but it's so beaten up that I think it's a good candidate. All right, so keep all that in mind when you think about this. I'm not looking for an investment here, right? HEAR had earnings too, I believe, recently, and is back down near where it bounced. The last time it bounced right below 16. It's fallen for a few days, I believe, since earnings. If it does flush 16 and get kind of busy to the downside, I like it near 15 on an intraday basis, especially if it's getting what we call downside shape, like 5-minute candles on an intraday basis. I would love to see this maybe touch or slightly flush 15 right there at the 200-day. You might get a good trade there, but there's a lot of mights and ifs in that scenario, and there's a 75% chance this won't give me a setup at all on Monday. But I think that thesis is worth paying attention to. A 16 flush that gets it down to flush the 200-day. And again, remember, I'm just looking for a possible trade. PCG, I believe, again, this is my lack of knowledge on an individual stock. What little I do know, I believe this is falling because of the California fires. And I don't know that there's been any headline saying that they're responsible for it in any way. So it's definitely fallen really, really quickly because of that. Bounced really nicely back here in June off of the 38 area, and even back here in February it appears to put down a nice reversal. So if it gets down to that area on Monday, and I want to make sure that the news doesn't say, hey, they did start the fires and they're going to be sued into oblivion, and by that time we'll certainly know from chatter in the chat room. We'll talk about what's going on with this one. It's a good candidate for a potential bounce down there. So just make sure you understand the macro news and what's pushing that one down, and do a little research if you're interested in trading at all, right? CTSO had this really nice move. Let's see, this would have been Wednesday from 870 all the way to 12. That's a huge move. And now you've got 2 days lower. It hasn't round tripped, so it's just kind of partially retracing that massive move on Wednesday, and declining volume Thursday and also Friday. So I do have this one on bounce watch for Monday, again, with a proper intraday setup. That one actually looks pretty decent to me. PXS and all the baby shippers bounced nicely on Friday. This one held up pretty well, so I'm going to see if it gets a follow-through day of that bounce that it had on Friday. Not in love with it. NVLN Traded this one twice on Friday, and that was my total profits on the 2 trades on Friday. This was pretty good to us. Having said that, it kind of illustrates, let me get that out of there. It kind of illustrates, if you watch my video, I put it on StockTwits and Twitter this weekend. It illustrates what I'm talking about when I say I talk about how to trade for a living. I don't even remember the title of the video, but it's basically the simple steps to becoming a professional day trader, something like that. And simple should have been in air quotes because it was really tongue-in-cheek, because there's nothing simple about it, but I did kind of break it down into the steps in that video. And one of the important steps is only trading the in-play stocks. And certainly after Thursday, NVLN moved from 71 cents to 235 on an intraday basis. If you're a day trader, this one also has to be on watch on Friday, which it was, right? I think I got long here right at 170, and you see the volume that came in right in that area. Using stuff that we teach in the course, this 170 break was very significant, and it went through 190, made a chunk of money there, and then also made a chunk of money, I believe, right here on this little, you could almost call it a failed breakout, but there's enough liquidity. See the volume there too? There's a very clean, I'll scroll over so you can see a very clean flag pattern forming with Thursday's high still above. So I love this right in this area, got long, and it didn't really follow through, but as we teach, scaled out some, and I think I made 600 something on this trade and another 300 something on this trade. So having said all that, it did give back. Let me go back to 5-minute candles. It did give back a lot of its gains coming into the afternoon on Friday. So I don't love it as much as I would have if it would have closed strong, but it's still going to be on watch nonetheless. It's feeling a little bit crowded to me now. RGSE announced a couple of, I guess, fairly sizable insider buys on Friday, and the reason I like it like that coupled with the chart is it traded back here, which would have been, I guess, maybe Monday. No, maybe this was the Friday before. Yeah, this was the Friday before. It traded 43 million plus shares and went to basically 50 cents, pulled back, and then nice volume on that on those 2 news blurbs on insider purchases on Friday, and a week later, and so now it's looks like it's curling back up. Nice volume. Is it going to retest 50? Is it going to get to 50 and break out above it and then test this high and so on? So it's a decent looking chart. You've got nice support below right at the 20-day. It's traded, for several months. This has been support, this area right here. And so now it's bouncing off support. So for me, the logical move here is up. I do like this chart. It does have, if you've heard me talk at all in my videos, I love to have catalysts above. If this breaks Friday's high on Monday over 43 cents, I look to the left and say, you know what, now if it breaks 50, it could really break out. So there is a potential catalyst above. Again, I made another video about catalyst versus resistance this weekend. So if you get a time, go check out my YouTube channel. I've got 2 new videos. They're both very short, but brief descriptions of things that matter to me as far as being a day trader. So RGSE looks good. DXR, this one is obscure. 51,000 shares on Friday. So it's almost like nobody's watching it, but it had big news back here. Then it put in a lower high. Then the other day it kind of took that out. I love this over this 3-day high, which would be over 820. If this gets through 8 with any volume, and really it's going to require news, I think, to get that, because, again, I'd remind you, 51,000 shares all day on Friday. But if this gets some volume and pushes through 8, this one could squeeze. So even though it's thin and low volume right now, it does have some recent news stories to me, which still makes it in play. And if any kind of decent news comes out, I think you'll watch a pretty quick short squeeze in that one. LCI had the big day on Thursday, then kind of a quiet inside day on Friday, looking for a possible 3rd day play back up on Monday. And then RRTS, again, kind of like that RGSE, it's got nice support and is curling up out of support on pretty decent volume for this stock on Friday. So we'll see if it gives any kind of continuation setup on Monday. That's all I've got. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see everybody in chat on Monday.